past all of them as well. What a move for the 48. Oh, look at this, and onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from number 40 to make it through. That left-hander sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
Your Monday night's worth of racing. It starts right here with us on RaceSpotTV, and no better than an endurance to bring yourself into play. The second of two endurances over the season, and so the last great chance for Pure Pace to show itself in the longest form of racing action that we've had. I'm Jake Sperry. Jeremy Scott is along with me for today's action as we are in the Belgian Ardennes, one of the places on the road of the legendary cycling classic Liège-Bastogne-Liège. This, the circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. And as we head to today, they know they will have two technicals and two features to attack after this. A brilliant end to the season.
And the end of the season, fantastic, because we go to Spain, we've got Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, then it's Sonoma, and we end it at the place of all places, the World's Auto Racing, the Daytona International Speedway.
Yep, and when you know that championships will be on the line heading over there, it will be critical. Alexander Davidson, for the first time in a very long time, moves up to the top of the standings, 21 clear of James Boomey after his win last time out. Ross McFarlane and Michael F. Docker are third and fourth ahead of Matthias Pirhinen and Anders Meyer. Marley Joffe, with his non-show last time out, drops down to seventh with Arthur Thurtle in eighth. Harrison Crowther moves up into ninth as Adam Watson rounds out the top 10 of the pro standings. Over in Pro-Am, Aidan Carter has the barest of margins over Michael Gray, with William Guthrie Then just a handful of points behind that, Phil Samways and Eric Muxka then are 4th and 5th in a very close showing championship, as Tommy Vettel, Chris Chatterton and Håkon Lindmo will be 6th, 7th and 8th. Tom Griffiths will be 9th in the championship as Dickie Simnor rounds out the top 10 for Atomic Esports XDCW. Daniel McCauley had his lead slashed at Le Mans last time out as Ben Altria moves within 50 points. Jacques Eva is 3rd with Brian Loynes in 4th. Jesse Payne-Wilkins is 5 points back of that, and 15 of that is Elliot Roberts, with Franek Sikorsky, Joe Coffin, Ben Bennyworth, and then Adam Hedgecock making the top 10. Sikorsky and Coffin are tied on championship points. In the Team Pro standings, WSR Esports are moving closer to the title ahead of Altitude Frame, as Altitude Esports by Sim Stickers hold up best of the rest by 9 over Racing Lab Esports. Nomad and Effect Simulations are 5th and 6th, with Atomic Esports XDCW, Atomic Esports and Solpec Precision Racing. They make up your 9. And then in the Team AM standings, Full Tilt Motorsport lead Full Tilt V Motorsport by over 250. Series 1 Racing, Altitude Frame Esports Mr. Hedge, Project 91 Academy, Full Tilt V Motorsport, Boosted Motorsport, then follows Series 1 Racing, Effect Simulations Club Sport, and then Altitude Frame Esports Mr. Hedge down at 10th in the Team AM standing. So that's how they set themselves up. The grid is already formed. So Alexander Davidson will be on your pole position for today's running, with James Boomy alongside for company. Ross McFarlane will go from 3rd, and Harrison Crowther is there in 4th. It is then the 2 Altitude Frame Esports drivers of Matthias Pirhinen and Dennis Grabowski 5th and 6th, with Michael Gray, the best of the Pro-Am, starting in 7th and critical to regain the championship lead, with Anders Meyer at 8th and Adam Watson in 9th. William Guthrie will go from 10th. Tommy Vettel is 11th, and Aiden Carter there in the Lamborghini. The championship leader of Pro-Am is 12th. You've then got Jack Osborne and Adam Tompkins on row 7. Arthur Thurtle goes 15th, and Ben Altria, best of the Pro-Ams, is starting 16th, but has Daniel McCauley, the championship leader, directly behind him. David Mendonca is going to start this one from 18th there for Solpec, as Josh Boot will go from 19th, along with Phil Samways rounding your top 20. There's Dickie Simnor in 21st, with Drew Fletcher in 22nd, the second of the Series 1 racing cars. Jacques Eva is 23rd ahead of Chris Chatterton there in 24th, 1.8 seconds adrift. It's then Brian Loynes and Tom Griffiths on the 13th row, with Håkon Lindmo and Howard Hassan then on row 14. Ben Bennyworth for Quartermaster Motorsport is 29th, and Taylor Lane for Nomad rounds out your top 30. It's only 35 here today, meaning Byron Crawford and Jesse Payne-Wilkins are on row 16. Adam Hedgecock and John Roberts are on row 17. And the final car today, 4 seconds adrift on pace, is the cracked racing machine of Paul Smith, a very good friend of ours here at RaceSpotTV. So, with your nice break out of the way, the track conditions are in play here, Jeremy, now, and it is a little bit blustery and a little bit cold.
It really is. 19 degrees Celsius, 66 degrees Fahrenheit, your ambient temperature. 21 degrees Celsius, 69 degrees Fahrenheit, your nice track temperature. Although, yeah, it is blustery out there. Humidity, 95%. We've heard of chances of rain, but I don't think it's going to happen. But it's just that time of year in Belgium where it just could pop up at any second.
It absolutely could, but it looks like, at least for the racing time they've got, 1 hour and 45 minutes. The first hour and a half of which doesn't look like there's any rain on radar to show. So that will be a good news for many of the drivers out there. And they have a brand new start zone here on the shortened formation lap. They used to line this up coming out of the curve of Paul Frere. What they do now is they line them up just going into the Fania chicane leading over to Campus Corner.
And that gives these guys not as much time to really get set for this race. Of course, you know, this whole track is absolutely fantastic, but at the same time, they, regardless, don't have much time to get paired up. They're going to have to get paired up here real shortly because it's a short jaunt to the start line from that final corner.
Yeah, and so with a circuit like this that does bend the rules a little bit of FIA grading marks, it is an FIA Grade 1 circuit, but does so by being over the maximum track limit for length by 4 meters, so it gets special dispensation for it. One of the only other circuits that gets dispensation for an FIA Grade 1 circuit just happens to be the Monaco Street Circuit, which has a litany of things that makes it not a Grade 1 circuit, but very much is. But they now take the opportunity to warm up those tyres, and boy, will they need to. Alexander Davidson on the front, looking to put in a very good start to the second half of the season. And do not be confused, Harrison Crowther is running the same liveries as those around, but he's running as a privateer, so will not count his points over towards the team standings, even though he does represent here by his livery Altitude Frame Esports. So he will be a little bit of a menace in the middle to help with, but only Ross McFarlane can be the direct help that is needed for many out there today. The pace car will move itself then into the pits, and so the waiting process now begins as these drivers set themselves up. And there's the launch, and it's well coordinated again by WSR. They get the launch, and they are 1 and 2. Ross McFarlane was quicker to whip it to it.
Well, no surprise there. Now we just got to hold our breath and get through La Source, as so far the pros all the way single file. Little bit of bumping and rubbing there, a little less. And there we go. There's our first spin. I'm surprised it happened that far back in the field, but nonetheless, one car spinning, and that just leaves so much mess behind.
Yeah, so the smoke goes up from Ben Altria, who is second in the AM category, and he's got a lot of work to do from back there, and he's done it all on his own, I think, just too eager on the power on the exit of La Source, and it's troublesome. Defending needed, because here comes the look, and it looks like Dennis Grabowski has troubles out there at the moment. James Boomy with clearance there. Grabowski up the hill, cold tyres, lap 1. Oh, it's the Eau Rouge Radion moment that we always seem to see on a lap 1, and Grabowski, a driver of his talent, shouldn't be one who's caught out with that.
Yeah, that's very surprising to see Grabowski with a rare miss through Eau Rouge Radion, and as thankfully he was able to get on the brakes and not cause any more carnage. But look at this, Boomy knocking on the door of Davidson already, as you're on board with Pirinen working his way through Puhan, as everybody's single file so far. And of course, remember, it's an endurance race, so you don't want to push too hard, but it looks like that we're taking this to an hour 45 sprint race.
Well, it will feel that way, and a number of drivers will be looking around and saying, where can I find the ability to jump up? Tommy Veddle's had a good start. William Guthrie's had a good start. Drew Fletcher, maybe not here, into Double Gauche, which has been called Puhan in the past, but at Double Gauche, the back just lets go, turning into the corner, and a light kiss there of the Tech Pro barriers.
And of course, look up ahead too. You have another car that went off. I believe that might have been Hassan that was falling back through the field, back into 32nd place now, down 4 spots. So already a rough start for some of these drivers, as we're watching Watson in the McLaren close in on Harrison Crowther, top 6 all pros so far this race, and we've already had a wild start for an endurance race.
We certainly have. Anders Myra has been one that has been looking out and saying, well, how aggressive are we going to have to be on the start of these races, working through into the early stages. He moves over to the inside, trying to get the pass done. Oh, it's going to tap Aiden Carter around. So the troubles then begin for the Pro-Am category leader, who's gone around. And what a disastrous start for him. And he's going to have to wait for everybody before he gets back out going again. He's blindsided where he is at the moment.
Yeah, that is not a good place to spin. Thankfully, Carter able to avoid any sort of ancillary damage for drivers coming around. Let's take a look at this, and Myra just going to the inside, and there you go, just one tap, and that's all it takes. Oh, look at the accident avoidance that it took for some of the drivers 3-4 back.
Yeah, one of the Porsches there having to take really big avoidance. I think that was Arthur Thurtle. Josh Boot now finds himself with hefty damage, and that's going to put him in worlds of trouble then in the early stages then, as the Englishman is now down in the pit and effectively out of this race. And he's also been caught at Eau Rouge and Radion with cold tyres. He's backed it into the wall, and it's created a massive chain reaction accident that has gone through. It looks like he's caught out Davin Mendonca, who's gone around in it, and I think there was 2 more, which included, believe it or not, the AM category leader, Dan McCauley.
What a strange start to the race we have, especially tires being that cold early on, you think that they would have warmed up, but nonetheless, we're seeing so many incidents all throughout. Watson trying to hold off Michael Gray there in that Mercedes. Of course, Michael Gray, your Pro-Am leader. Look at dust being picked up there. No harm, no foul, but down the straightaway, now we're starting to see drivers get into a rhythm. Something you really want to do here in this hour 45 race, as Grabowski looks like he's finally coming out of the pits. Oh, Lane with a quick little turnaround there through Bruxelles as he comes around and back onto the circuit.
Yeah, Bruxelles, a corner that is so difficult to get correct, and I think he'd already had damage picked up earlier on there in the lap, which is why he's struggled with that spin, trying to limp that one back home. Harrison Crowther now down in 5th position behind Matthias Pirhanen here, and trying to work out what is the best way to get this sorted. Now, one of the things and one of the reasons why we've seen so many instances, traditionally for endurance style racing, they'll use the endurance pit lane to give themselves the launch. Not here today, they're using the Grand Prix pits.
Well, the amount of cars that we have, the Grand Prix pits, you know, that's fine. But yeah, a lot of these drivers not used to using the Grand Prix pits. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how the pit stops work. We're going to have pit stops throughout this race. And Tompkins, as you see, he is in pit road getting all sorts of damage repair. But look at how close James Boomey and Ross McFarlane are off the back of Davidson. You can put a blanket over him and cover them up as McCauley still falling through the field. Here's Davidson coming around into Bruxelles. Still single file for your top 3. They've broken away for the rest of the field.
Well, critical for them at the moment, and this is what we have seen over the course of this season. 1, 2, and 3, the 3 musketeers of this championship. Davidson, Boomey, and McFarlane. Everyone else has been trying to hold steady and hold themselves on in terms of this group, but it's not been easy. Pirhanen moving to a Mustang, using that 1 free car switch to make that work. And here's Paul Smith working here back in 24th position. Well, I say back in 24th position. He's gained 9 spots off of the start through all of the dramas that he has managed to work himself through, and he is doing a wonderful job right now.
Yeah, we were talking with Paul, and he wasn't too confident about his car. You know, I told him, go kick some tail out there. He goes, the only tail I'm kicking is mine. Well, I tell you what, he's proven all of us wrong by a great climb with not only attrition, but through passes.
So, that's going to be important in terms of the race then, that those who have maybe picked their way through the drama of the start of this race have got a great chance of making it work for them. Cars that were in the pits then early include Dan McCauley, Josh Boot, Dennis Grabowski, David Mendonca, Adam Tompkins, Sharks Eva, Taylor Lane. It is a list that goes as long as your arm out there with the drivers who have suffered in the opening lap. McCauley is back out and away again, but critically is going to be behind Ben Altria, who, after spinning on the opening lap, opening corners, is going to be looking around at that going, oh, a reprieve at last.
Yeah, not going to have to worry about too much in terms of the points. It looks like Boot is back out onto the circuit as well. So Loins and Tompkins, I think they're still receiving some sort of repair. As we said, Mendonca out of the race. You saw on the left-hand side of your screen. Davidson running the center line into the track, going through the Kemmel into the comb, trying to get some sort of defense, because here's the thing, once Boomey gets out front, it's almost game over right there. Here's Brian Loins, and see a replay of, yep, once again, just spinning through there and just head on. Look at the air that Mustang has.
The energy's got to dissipate somewhere, and for Brian Loins, that is as high speed as it gets for the altitude esports Mr. Hedgecarp there. The car going through. Adam Watson losing out side by side down the hill, and in the background, yeah, position made then for those looking to search. So looks like Watson's able to hold Michael Gray, the Pro-Am lead, trying to work a way through, and will need to make a way through, because look who's directly behind him there. That is William Guthrie, trying to work his magic and to jump up another place.
And that effectively is for the AM lead. So Guthrie knocking at the door of the Mercedes. And we're seeing that the Mercedes really coming onto its own with this latest update. And Watson, just the cork in the bottle that these two need to get around if they really want to race one another. But Guthrie, he's trying to make some sort of offensive move. We'll see what he does into the chicane. But right now, that's just seen a little bit of an opening for Guthrie. For Gray. So that's good news for Gray. Not so much for Guthrie.
No, so William Guthrie knows that in a position like this, where you've got massive amount of slipstream here, that being third in the line is maybe a little bit tougher to get it done when Michael Gray has the ability to use the toe in front of Adam Watson to go and get this all sorted and settled down. So I think they're doing a wonderful job at the moment to prove just how great the running is going to have to be. So sit down, get yourself ready for what will be great racing. Now, this being an hour and 45 minutes in terms of race, we normally expect, if there were no restrictions on the car, for it to be a one-stop race. But because we're limiting the tank to what is 75% of the fuel tank available, it's going to be a two-stop race with the pit window opening at pretty much 15 minutes. Michael Gray, with a wonderful run up through Radion, will now attack up the Kemmel Straight over to Lake Coombe. Is this going to be where Watson finds himself in just the wrong place? He just sits and sits and sits, gives him a little push, a little lick of flame for the grill of the AMG Mercedes, and ultimately it's stay as you are.
That turns into grilled schnitzel once they come through, and still single file for that battle for sixth, the three-car battle, working their way through the beginning part of the circuit. Look at you got Myra and Vidal back there sitting in wait should something happen, and Myra, he's getting faster. So if I'm William Guthrie, I'm not going to look at my rearview mirror, because that BMW is just, that grill's just going to be bigger than what it really is.
Yeah, so when you've got the two Racing Lad cars sat there, the Norwegians, Anders Meyer and Tommy Vettel, who are both trying to work themselves up into higher positions in the top 10, they're looking at this and going, yeah, this would be a really nice day at the office for us if we can get two cars in the top 10 and work ourselves some magic over the course of this race. Tommy's got a bit of pressure behind. That's Jack Osborne, who is there in the 11th position, up to, at the moment, for Atomic Esports, and running a very nice Halloween-inspired Mustang.
That's something slick as he's knocking on the door of that top 10. Of course, I mean, fourth in pro. I'm trying to get to third as you're on board with the Mustang. And tell you what, he's done quite well so far this race as he works his way through the field and to get on that bottom step of the podium in the Pro-Am class just a little bit earlier.
Yeah, he'll definitely want to try and do what he can, at least to jump up in the early goings. They've built a gap of about 4 seconds to the next group, which is Phil Samways, Arthur Thurtle and Dickie Simnor. So they'll be looking to try and continuously build that margin and have the chance to run away here in this running at the circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. Down the hill though, Michael Gray a lot closer this time. Now he's got to try and pick his run wisely, coming up through Radion corner and now onto the Kemmel once more. He is close, but they will have the lap traffic of Jacques Eva to try and navigate through in the next couple of moments. So for Michael Gray, it might be a case of, well, I want to sit down in on a circuit where a lot of high-speed running is done. I might want to save some fuel.
And that's a smart thing to do, especially with two pit stops. Try and lengthen out at least that first pit stop so you don't have to worry about taking that second pit stop until a little bit later on in the races. Myra goes a little agricultural through there. No harm, no foul. But yeah, I think sitting back there, drafting and saving that fuel is going to be the name of the game. And that looks to be about the same thing for William Guthrie, because there were several opportunities he could have made that pass but decided not to. He's just on the cusp there of that draft.
He's on the cusp of it, but not necessarily able to get as much as is necessary at this moment to go and make these passes. Now, they will still be, over the course of this race, tied to an incident point count out there, and it will also tie up to their championship as well, because if you go over a certain threshold, you start dropping points, then the penalties come in. Spa on iRacing has had a bit of a history of things, as it looks like Paul Smith here running up behind there, one of the Mercedes. I believe that would have been Howard Hassan. He goes around and just noses it into the barriers out of Malmedy. Real shame for Paul goes through, but this used to be the place where you would watch the next week after the Spa 24 Hours, the strongest fields in all of the racing action that Skip Barbers could produce, because everyone had gone from an A4.99 down to a D1.0 license.
Yep, and just looking at Paul's incident, got to be a shame. I know he's trying his best to stay up there. He's still in the top 30, but still working out the back of Alexander Davidson and James Boom. He's still in a close battle, and I think this is what we're going to be for the next couple of minutes. The pit window is going to open up here shortly, but I think everybody going to try and get within some sort of drafting help so they can save fuel. So now, I feel that we've turned into somewhat of a fuel race.
It will do in the early stages, and Alexander Davidson's having to do the donkey workout at the front of this field, as now they work by Jacques Eva. Here, Watson, Gray and Guthrie trying to get this one sorted, and they will hold themselves in line. Myra through as well on Jacques Eva that section, but they are going to have to be looking at this race thinking, if we're not going to be getting these runs over the top of the hill, I may as well sit down and try and play long game. So there's a lot of variance that can come out from the strategy. That's why the window is as strong as it is. But what you are seeing here is drivers are being patient. They know that there's not a half an hour followed by an hour in terms of race. They know they're not sitting down having two types of races. Harrison Crowther now goes through on Matthias Pirhanen, and Pirhanen, I think, just made a mistake going into double gauche, and then that will see the pass back from Crowther into fourth.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to see too many moves here as we're seeing Hakan Aidelinmo fall through the field as well. He's falling out of the top 20 as he may have had a problem. Here it is right here. And we're watching, I think, just the back end swaps around on him. He loses several positions trying to get straight, but saves from hitting those barriers. So at least he's got that going for him.
Yeah, I'll be very happy that they've added a little bit of tarmac down there on the inside. That will be for the bike layout here at the circuit of Spa-Francorchamps, believe it or not. So having the bikes available to go out and race on, they've put a little bit of an added section down there at what is Speaker's Corner. So they've got the chance now to say, right, that's the corner where you can have a little bit more on the exit. And without that, in the old school scan of this circuit, it would have been grass, and Hakan Aidelinmo would have been in the barriers.
Yeah, he would have been holding on for it till the car ended up on the side of the road, but nonetheless able to get through because, well, we can thank the bikes for that one. So they still got this battle for first. And the battle for sixth as well between Watson, Gray, and Guthrie up through Eau Rouge and Leon and through into the Camel Straight. And look at how close Myra's gotten. He's got within striking distance, and Guthrie's also fallen back just a little bit as well.
Yeah, the Northern Irishman, William Guthrie, is sat there, but giving himself a bit of room with Michael Gray trying to push the agenda. Anders Myra has caught this pack, and so it's 4 there in the battle on screen at the moment. This going for 6th place at this moment in time. There goes Guthrie, though, down to the inside of Bruchel. The long downhill, 180-degree right-hander. Thank you very much. Michael Gray loses out the Pro-Am lead on that one move alone. And it's one small mistake there from the likes there, Michael Gray. He just overcommitted going through a Malmedy corner, the highest point on this circuit, and then that just opened the door for Guthrie, who wasn't taking no for an answer.
Yeah, why not? I mean, if you're going to have the door open for you, you might as well accept the invite because you may not get it the next time it happens. Guthrie, now your Pro-Am leader, looking down the running order. We haven't much about the AM. Ben Benny, we're still holding on to that lead, but Jesse Payne Wilkins sitting close in second place. Patty Faulkner not too far away in Pro-Am.
Yeah, and proving that there is a lot to be done with this racing, that the Am and Pro-Am divisions are finding themselves in a wonderful place. So Ben Bennyworth with control of that, Jesse Payne Wilkins directly following that, and then it's John Roberts, who is 3rd in Am. Arthur Thurtle now close in a battle. He's got through on Phil Samways, but Samways wants to find his way back as he'll look to the outside of the chicane, and he gets a little bit blocked in there, and so couldn't quite get the line necessary. Dickie Simnor waits on the rear of this group in the 442 and goes, yeah, that was close, but close doesn't quite get the job done.
No, ifs and buts or candies and nuts, we don't have a party. So they still work their way around La Source, Thurtle, Samways, and Sidnor. They're nose to tail so far, so we'll see how the two Mercedes can pounce on this Porsche going down through into Kennel Straight and Lacombe shortly.
Yep, so climbing up the hill, good run there by Arthur Thurtle. He keeps the gap at about 0.2 of a second and now needs that Porsche to run. And the Porsche is normally a car that isn't necessarily the best in a straight line. So that will give the cadence then of the Mercedes. Phil Samway's a great chance, and Dickie Simnor, who sat there in another Mercedes, will be certainly trying to play leapfrog in this as well. Over the top of the crest and back down the hill, it gets busier in front. So Myra, Gray, Guthrie, Watson, all there together, working out the bottom positions of the top 10, and this the race on for 6th place overall at this moment. And because they're singing from the same hymn sheet, if you've got a 6th place finish in a race like this, that is major points. Breaks on into Vanya, the right and then the left, and William Guthrie just has to sit and watch.
Well, of course, you finish in the top 10 at Spa in any series, and that in and of itself, a huge accomplishment with the historic implications of this facility. But still, you want to finish up high quite well and make sure you get those lack of incident points, because you get the points and then you get the bonus for that as well. Lots to play for here still as we see John Roberts, a replay. It's going to be swapping ends. Yep, swapping ends in the gravel trap, and just a little kiss there on that tire barrier.
Yeah, it leaves the rear wing there, and that spoiler will be one for everyone who goes through. Guthrie gets the pass. Here comes a double crossover to get back. It's off camber through the final corner. So for Adam Watson, he sits, he looks to try and find that move, and I think this is going to be a day where can you get it back is going to be the main question asked. And look at how close to Adam Watson there goes Michael Gray, looking to hold his margin then and move up for the Pro-Am Championship lead with the spin that was conducted by Aidan Carter. He's down in 23rd position at the moment, trying to recover. So there's the difference makers of everyone trying to build as much as they can. Up the hill they go along the Kemmel Straight, and William Guthrie is going to get a little push from Adam Watson. So Watson not willing to go back to the front again. We're not in the crazy trade at this stage. Everybody's still just feeling out what this race is going to be. I like to call it the business card moment of the race, because you're saying to everyone around you, hi, here's who I am, here's how I race, here's what I do.
Yeah, I like to call it thinking man's racing, because now you're thinking, all right, if I stay behind this car, I save this much fuel, or we can move our pit stops this way. So this is one of the points in the race. While somebody call it dead time, this is actually really an interesting time, because you get to see what drivers' strategies are. And if somebody dives in the pits, I would not be surprised if the group would dive in as well. So that's going to be something to watch out for a little bit later in the race. Now, here's the question that I have. Can this Guthrie train catch up to Pirinen and or Crowther? They're about 4 seconds behind the number 49. So that might be something else to watch for as we have jostling for position near the back of the pack as well.
Yeah, so I would say 3/10 lost on that last lap will be a little bit more difficult to close that in, but William Guthrie now having, I would say, free real estate to go and chase down that gap. He's going to try and stretch the legs at this moment of that Full Tilt Motorsport Mustang and really try and run for the next group in front. He'll drag Watson & Co. along, and then this WSR eSport Bread on this altitude frame sandwich is currently holding itself steady. So I think this race is going to be interesting, not on the fact of what Alexander Davidson does, and not on the fact of what James Boomey does. I think this race is interesting on the fact of what Ross McFarlane does.
Yeah, I totally agree with that statement, because now you've got a driver sitting there who's essentially playing wingman to the leader. McFarlane holds all the cards right now, because Boomey and Davidson, they could go run their own race.
they can. So if this is a case of just trying to mark each other for the championship, Davidson and Boomy will come together. It looks like John Roberts there in the Aston Martin's had another switch up and has found another Tech Pro barrier to make friends with, this time down at the bottom of the circuit, right in front of the Tech the Future campus here in Spa-Francorchamps. So that is going to be a very not nice moment to go through, and they're not a million miles away actually from that town of Stavelot. It's what they call Stavelot Corner, and something of a little bit of a moment over in Stavelot is the fact that they do have a monument just on the outskirts of Stavelot to the legendary cannibal out there in terms of cycling, Eddie Merckx.
One of the greats of cycling. You know, it's funny, you know how Apple has, speaking of cycling, you know how Apple has the new, in the new iOS, you can put a wallpaper on the back. Well, I have the current great of all time on there as well. So that's fun to watch as much as it is these greats here. Oh, look at this. Got a little bit of battle for position for 13th. Simnor trying to go around the inside, get to think better of it. Their nose to tail a lot closer than they have been all race long, but Simnor's not making life easy at all for Samways.
No, Samways is sat in the middle of this group. He's trying to get by Arthur Thurtle here for position. This is 12th, 13th and 14th out there at this moment in time. So Arthur Thurtle here is being a real bottleneck, and it is a tough position as a pro here, Jeremy, to sit down and say the pro-ams are giving me a nightmare.
Well, Thurtle, I mean, it's been a strange season for Thurtle. Been up at the front, now in the middle of the pack, but and that's the thing. These pro-ams are giving him the business, heading down towards the chicane. Look at how close they are as Samways is trying to make the move to the inside. He's going to break a little bit later and get it just before they go through the chicane. Thurtle not going to go away without a fight until they get to the front stretch.
That was a big slide of power on the exit there from Phil Samways, and it will bring Arthur Thurtle back here towards the last source hairpin here, the start of the lap, which used to be public road until about 2006 around here was when this turned into a full facilitated race circuit out there, and that used to be the connecting road all the way between the towns of Spa and of Francorchamps. So that was a really critical stage of road as you went through, and of course if you want to go even further back in the history, as Thurtle now will pick up the run along the Kemmel straight and up the hill. They did used to go straight on. Here comes Dickie Simnor down the inside here at Lake Coombe. He's going to get one, he's going to get two down the inside. He overcooks it. Round goes Samways, and that will be a very red-faced Dickie Simnor, who's going to try and let Phil Samways have that place and say, sorry, that was my mistake. But Arthur Thurtle runs away, just as I was about to talk about the old Spa, which was even more monstrous and scary with the Master Kink.
Yeah, let's take a look at that replay, and it doesn't matter if you wait for your competitor or not. It's still going to be a +4 for Dickie as we go down to the inside, and there goes the contact with Samways just spinning, and you gotta feel bad for Samways because now he has no chance to catch up to Thurtle unless a pit strategy happens.
Well, you'd say you're very much in the window for it at the moment if there is damage to be had on the car, but it looks like he pretty much gets away with most heavy elements of damage that are there. William Guthrie staying and remaining in this 6th position and holding himself actually to a very, very good standard of racing here. It's not really stepped out of line. He's not really done anything untoward. He is slightly slower than those in front, but his job is simple. Get Pro-Am, and that's Aidan Carter dropping down the order there on the timing tower. So I wonder whether he's just had a spin coming through Fania, and it looks like he has done. We'll take a look here. Dives into the corner, and does the back, yeah, the back just steps out the moment that he depreciates on the throttle, and the rear grip just goes away when he doesn't have enough air pushing the rear spoiler down onto the floor.
Well, Carter's one of the very few, if not the only one, running Lamborghini, so it's not like they can go to a fellow Lamborghini team and say, hey, what do I do here? This race has just gone bad to worse for Carter. As now we watch his battle for the lead. So really, we call it a battle. It's more of a train for the lead, as Davidson, still the engine in that Mustang Express, going through Malmedy, heading to Brussels.
Well, Alexander, son of David, is doing everything that he can to keep James Boomy behind. Ross McFarlane there, and here is your AM category leader, Ben Bennyworth, and he's sort of stumbled into it a little bit, actually, I'd say, over the course of this race. He's seen Ben Altria go around. He has seen the likes of Jacques Ziva find trouble. He has seen Dan McCauley run into troubles too, and he realises, right, I'm leader now. Here comes Paddy Falconer looking to try and get the atomic car through, but he gets a little bit of no love there from Jesse Payne-Wilkins, who's saying, no, don't take this place away from me. That's the AM lead. I want that. That's an AM lead. Big lunge down to the inside, and he has to go to the latest level to prize open that opportunity. Is he going to get this sorted? And he gets around the outside. That is more smash and grab than what we saw at the Louvre yesterday.
Paddy just saying, you know what, no, I am going to make this move whether you like it or not. So a little bit of suggestive passing, we'll say that. So now Payne-Wilkins, who was really close to Bennyworth about 10 minutes ago, falling back just a little bit, still doesn't have to worry about a fellow AM driver until Hassan, who has Lidmo between the two of them. But man, that was just that was almost a straight up muggy for that position.
And it just goes to show what makes this a really difficult race, because you think you've got the position all nicely sorted out, you've fended off the move over at Malmedy, but down the hill at Bruxelles, you can still send one right down the inside, and gravity is only going to help you as you go through the corner. In some cars, the front right wheel actually lifts off the ground with how much of a descent down from that vista it is as they go. So ultimately, it's all about positions, and Paddy Falconer now will eye up Ben Bennyworth for another place, trying to stay with the driver in 16th place overall there, the Nomad car of Chris Chatterton.
I was just about to say Chatterton, still a good decent amount of gap between Bennyworth and Chatterton. So if Faulkner can get around, he's running about the same lap times as Chatterton, so it may be for naught, but still, you never know. One wheel off, and Bennyworth could be, Faulkner could be knocking at the door of that position for Pro-Am. But Bennyworth, if he's smart, just lets him down, because it is an out-of-class battle.
There are wonderful battles to be had everywhere, and we are on the cusp of the first pit stops, then trying to knock on the door as we are half an hour into this race. I would imagine that 45 minutes is the absolute latest we will be seeing drivers come in, but this is going to be a very tough pit lane to enter, because there is no other way of describing it, Jeremy. It is single file when you go in.
It's single file, and here's the thing, even in single file, we know how tight it is, and we've seen drivers bin it up. Some of the great pros have even, as we say, cocked it up going into that pit road. So it's going to be a test of might to come straight down at speed and then make a hard left into the primary pits.
So we see it a lot where drivers look to try and make the moves and then realise, oh, I've got to go into the pits. That it is a very unfortunate pit entry at times. And Michael Gray, we go on board on the AMG Mercedes here, looking for a way by the likes of Adam Watson, who half throws the fence there into the corner because he's lisking lazily into line back underneath the toe of William Guthrie. Now, that gives you an indication that Adam Watson here does not feel comfortable with where he is in the group. He knows he's got Anders Meyer there behind, and Meyer is trying to run up the championship order. So this is a really nasty position you want to be in, middle of a pack of four with Pro-Am category leaders battling it out and wanting to get by you. They've got a lot to race for, and you wouldn't want to be there if you were Adam Watson.
Well, would you feel comfortable with Anders Meyer behind you? He's just had so much bad luck this season, of course, moving from the Mustang on to the BMW. He still hasn't found the success that he needed to, but he's still trying to make it as Pierinen's gotten around Crowther for fourth place. We'll see how that happened, as that's an interesting pass there as we're watching this Guthrie train once again. Chatterton I think, is the first one, though, to come into the pits.
Now, interestingly enough, Harrison Crowther lifted going up the hill as Chris Chatterton makes his first stop of the race, and it is a scheduled stop as he will leave his box, very early box there in the pit garages, and works himself back onto the transit lane to go again. Harrison Crowther did lift off on the Kemmel Straight. So that must have been an order that came in from the team that Matthias Pirhinen is faster than you. Do you copy?
I'll tell you what. Yeah, exactly. I wonder what that means. Either way, no team orders here as Guthrie still holding on to a scant lead over Adam Watson, as Watson's also trying to keep Michael Gray and Anders Myra behind him. But I think everybody's just waiting for that first pit stop, and with Chatterton coming in, the gates may open here sooner rather than later.
Well, let's talk about the gates opening right now, because James Boomey has now dropped the second, and look over to Ross McFarlane in the 127, because he is all over the back of James Boomey trying to find a move. And in fact, he thought about a lunge down the inside. This is Ben Bennyworth then up there, and it looks like he's had an issue. So the AM category leader, Howard Hassan, as well, has hit the barriers and has had trouble. So Bennyworth, there's the lunge down the inside by Falconer, and so that is the place change. So more rather than an issue, that is just a place change that we have seen. And then Falconer goes around. Bennyworth's got nowhere to go except to wait. Jesse Payne Wilkins takes the AM Championship lead. Oh my goodness, Howard Hassan, nowhere to go.
Well, that's how that happened. It's just one of those unfortunate things. Because I was just about to say, during this replay, I can't think of a dry race we've called today this season that has had so much mayhem to it.
There's been a lot of organised chaos, I think is the best way to say it, and I'm looking around at James Boomey here and wonder if he's made a mistake over that last lap to have allowed that gap to be so close then to who he needed it to be. And I reckon it was up over at Lake Coombe where James Boomey found his mistake and dropped all his time. So now he's at 9/10 of a second. It's a critical moment here in this race. Another look here from Ben Bennyworth. Look, at that point you just have to wait, and Paddy Falconer, I think, is too eager to get back on track, so loops it round again. And then Howard Hassan, you know, you got to feel for him there as an AM category driver who's got to try and piece his way through that. You never expect a car to be what is the effective term of doing donuts on the exit there of what is Speaker's Corner, which is tough enough to see at the best of times.
It really is. And of course, you know, at one hand you want to say, well, you got to go where the car isn't going, but at the same time, you agree, you don't expect a driver to be doing donuts out of Speaker's Corner. So it's just a wrong place, wrong time for Howard Hassan, and he's in the pits getting some repairs. Ben Bennyworth is out of the pits as well with a 28-second pit stop. Faulkner's in, so we're starting to see pit stops hit. Let's see when the leaders come in, which should be any lap now.
Well, James Boomey knows that he's had to work hard over this lap to gain that time back. It's gone from what was just over a second down to 3/4 of one as he pivots his way through the final chicane. It used to be a bus stop chicane where it was a very quick left-right and then a right-left that sent you back onto the end of the lap, and it was one of the most iconic short start straights that you could ever have in motorsports. It was wonderful to see, but nowadays it is a little bit more routine that you have out there. 8/10 is the gap over the line, and Ross McFarlane here not really pressing the issue, I think, at this moment, and that might be wise in some respects because he wants to give James Boomey a hard time, but the more he does that, of course, Ross is fighting for a championship as well. He wants to give Alexander Davidson a hard time if he can.
Yeah, he really can, but I don't think the team is going to like it. Here's a slow-mo of Hassan, and just maybe 2 inches wider, he would have made it through, but unfortunately it's going to be effectively race over as he is 1 lap down. He and Jack Steve are the only 2 cars 1 lap down, as those who've been involved in incidents are still either A in the pits or out of the race. McFarlane just holding station there for second place over under James Boomey. And yeah, I think that WSR has told McFarlane, stay stationed, give Boomey a hard time, and we'll reward you later on.
So will that reward come in the form of building up that margin in the pit stops? Because if he can save fuel in this stint, we will certainly see that some drivers will have a bigger advantage. I've been watching Anders Meyer on the fuel save, and he's been lifting off about 50 meters early into the corners. We call it LICO out there in the world of motorsport, lift and coast, and especially in endurance style racing, there is a huge benefit to it. 9/10 of a second. We talk about a rubber band as well. It could snap here if you don't take the corners properly, and just about holding then through Stavelot corner goes James Boomey. He is relentlessly clinging on by his fingernails to Alexander Davidson here in this opening stint.
Let's see what the first pit stop does to both of those drivers. But yeah, it's strange to say Davidson's running away from Boomy, but Boomy, of course, when he would be behind, it would be during those races where we would have the inversions. Nobody coming in just yet. So we're close to that 45-minute range. We'll see when the drivers decide to come in. I'd say, yeah, next couple laps or so. And then they've got a whole hour to play with. So essentially a long race stint that we normally see. It's kind of interesting that they're breaking it up into 45 and an hour for the pit stops.
More be 45, 45, and then you'll be left with 15 minutes at the end. That's why it's a two-stop race today, because of the strategies that we have been keeping our eyes privy to, with the fuel tank being the way it is. So cresting up the rise again, more battling on the horizon then, as this is going to be Dickie Simnor and Phil Samways. Take two, as looks like Simnor has found his way through on Samways here, and Howard Hassan is back out there. They've got a gap to Tom Griffiths, so they've managed to maintain their 13th and 14th positions. It's cost them 6 seconds, though, the incident they had earlier on.
And 6 seconds is a good thing, but still 6 seconds is a lot here, as McFarland's gotten around Boomy for second place. So wonder what happened there to Boomy. If he's
Boomy's off!
He's spun! He spun!
Malmedy corner, highest level of the circuit. He looks like he's grabbed the inside curb too aggressively, and a driver who has not made a mistake effectively all season long. That is the first time we have seen one of the main protagonists of this Pro Championship crack.
Well, it goes to show that Boomy's human, just comes around, rides that curb there, and Malmedy a little and that just unsettles that Mustang. He's back underway, sans rear wing, but now it's a WSR 1, 2, 3. 1-2, as Matthias Pierinen's going to try and help out and basically run the Ultimum Freem Esports banners right now.
So you have to feel like James Boomy is going to have to come into the pits. He is going to have to get that damage repaired, and he is also going to know that he is very slow without the rear spoiler helping him keep that rear of the car planted firmly down into the floor. Now, they do have one fast repair available. It's effectively a spare car to go out and race with. So lifeline burnt here at this first stop for James Boomy, but critically now, he's going to be looking around and saying, what do I do? In comes Matthias Pieringen then from third.
And you saw him pump the brakes going in the pit in. Smart move, as he saw how tight the pit entry is. Let's see what Boomy does as he's fallen back to 11th. And yeah, no surprise here. He is into the pit, so we'll see if he goes for the fast repair, if he just decides to repair the engine. It didn't look to me like the rear end outside of that wing was too damaged, but again, sometimes we just can't see some of the damage.
Well, suspension would be something. Some of the underfloor with the tray and the diffusers that you have there with these cars will also play a factor. Now watch for this rear wing to just pop back together on this car. Whoop, fast repair burn, and James Boomy's going to go. And Aiden Carter, who's had a torrid time at things, back switches around on him, and he goes into the gravel. What a tough day this has been for the Pro-Am Championship leader.
God, you got to think if didn't have any luck, they'd have no luck at all. They're back underway, and there goes Pieringen out of the pits into 8th place. So we still got to wait for the leaders. Let's see what kind of pit strategy they're running, and if they're going to short.
Oh, Boomy spun out the pits! Oh my goodness, James Boomy is I think just the red mist has descended. He's spun it out the pit, and now he's going to have to work away to get back around again. And I think he's trying to get it in reverse to not pick up a penalty, and he's knocked his rear wing off again.
Well, that was interesting to see that. Just very rare mistakes out of the points leader, or at least a former points leader. He comes around to pit out and just gets on the gas too quick with cold tires.
Yeah, now he's off and in the barriers, and I think, yeah, that's day done for James Boomy. He is out here at the circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. What a day for James Boomy to have on what is one of the most important runs. He knocks off the rear spoiler that was held on probably with 2 bits of blue tack or anything else at the moment with the way that hit the barriers, and then climbing up the hill to Eau Rouge and Radion. He has a massive hit, and suddenly it is the dream for WSR Esports as 1 and 2 hit the pits, back turns around with no rear grip, and bang into the wall and out.
Well, that's just racing. You know, you never know when you're really going to need that quick repair. Unfortunately, he used it. Here come your leaders as Watson's in, Gray's in, Myra's in. So everybody realizing this is probably the last opportunity that they can make it into the pits on their own.
Yep, so they will take their fuel, they will take some tyres, and they will have the opportunity to get in. And as Myra hits his box just ahead of Michael Gray, as Adam Watson just sits and watches there, you can see the jacks up there indicating that the tyres are getting that change that is necessary. Now, how's it going to be out of the pits? Alexander Davidson comfortably in formation ahead of Ross McFarlane, as Matthias Pirhanen, remember, was a driver who pitted earlier than his rivals and contemporaries around. He will come out then miles ahead of Harrison Crowther here as he works himself off the exit. So Crowther will get absorbed into the group of Michael Gray, Adam Watson and Anders Myra. It was Myra with a slightly slower stop there, so great work there from Michael Gray to get the launch he wants. He's on the back now of Harrison Crowther.
Now, one wonders if Myra took a longer pit stop so he can get out front for a couple laps at the end for the second pit stop. And see if he can grow lead and come from the back. That's going to be an interesting storyline to watch as well. Crowther, though, trying to hold off Michael Gray once again. It seems like that Crowther doing all he can to try and stay relevant up near the top 5. He'd be on the bottom end of that top 5 here shortly.
Yep, so now with many a driver thinking the pit stop, that's wide, and here comes the move. Michael Gray down the inside of Harrison Crowther, and now 4th for the Pro-Am. He's got the jump on Guthrie, Osborne and Vettel, and now look at Michael Gray go. He's got a wonderful launch in terms of how this race sits for him. And looking around after Jesse Payne-Wilkins' pit stop, it is Jesse Payne-Wilkins who now leads the category. It's Drew Fletcher second in AM, and Ben Altria is now back up to 3rd. And oh no way! Alexander Davidson hits the wall coming through double gauche, and he now has to come in for a pit stop. What is going on today?
Starting to wonder if Spa was suddenly spinning. Well, yeah, suddenly spinning, but nonetheless, suddenly built on ancient burial grounds, because there has been so much bad luck for the front runners. That gives McFarlane an even bigger lead as Pirhanen is 9.7 seconds back.
I'm flabbergasted. I am absolutely flabbergasted here. Double gauche, running through the left-hand bend, and he just had... There is no explanation why he'd hit the brakes like that going through there. The only thing I can think of is if he has a micro stutter or a screen freeze.
That's got to be it, because it definitely isn't the 13th of the month on a Friday since we're racing on a Monday. But look at this. Oh, some of the cars coming out at speed, coming out of double gauche. They know that there's a yellow, they just don't know where the 55 is. And of course, with that left rear absolutely gone, there's no chance. And yeah, just that suspension breaks just as he spins.
Yeah, he took the toe back to pit, so critically, on taking that toe time, he will get the fast repair, jump in the spare car, and go. What a free kick for Ross McFarlane here today. He is going to be reveling in this. He walked into this championship today here, Jeremy, 107 points back, and he might walk out of it right back in the thick of it.
And we mentioned that he's going to get gifted from the team. We didn't think it was going to be like that, but still, McFarlane, he's got to be going to buy a lotto ticket after this race. Absolutely fantastic that he's just on the right side of everything that's been going wrong, but we still have about 58 minutes left in this race. Anything can happen as the Altitude Freedom team just battles each other between Crowther and Watson.
So, with these two going at it together, Harrison Crowther in 4th now, Adam Watson in 5th, Michael Gray in the Pro-Am division has moved himself up onto the podium here today. They work through double gauche and now look to attack off of the exit. There is Michael Gray in front of them, and he will be running for as quickly as he can, because he knows that he's in a big Pro-Am category battle with William Guthrie, Aidan Carter and Phil Samways. Those 4 are the big 4 at the moment in Pro-Am. Guthrie is only behind Michael Gray by 10 championship points, so this would be a massive buffer for Michael Gray, 3rd compared to 7th. Whoa, big wiggle in the back. Watson holds on.
Oh, what did I say? Crazy things have happened. Just I was going to say something. Yeah, you notice that the McLaren with a little bit of a wiggle, but that gives Myron a chance to reel in the fellow pro driver there. That's a battle for fourth in pro right now. As we see the replay here, it just looks like just a little bit too much. Yeah, just a little too much curb there, and that steps him out.
It does. It now puts him right with Anders Meyer in the bottom right corner of your screen. Back now to a driver's eye view here with the BMW of Anders Meyer. It's a little bit shaky out there for him at the moment, so he's obviously got a lot of force feedback to work with in towards turn number one. And what a car he's running, that BMW. It debuted actually in iRacing before it actually debuted in the real world. It's one of those cars that has a major sim heritage.
Has a major sim heritage, major sim following. I would say now next to the Mustangs. You see a lot more Mustangs out there, mostly because of how it races. But now the run down the Kennel Straight as Myra closes in on Watson, goes to the inside. Does he get the pass done? I think he's going to right in the braking zone, and indeed he does. Myra with his quiet march up through the top five.
Yeah, he'll love that. Well, Anders Meyer, he started today in 8th place, and now it puts both him and Adam Watson +3 for the day. A very accomplished move there at Lake Coombe, and down the hill at Bruxelles, covers the inside line perfectly, hugs it like a child's toy out there, like a teddy bear, and ultimately can continue on in this race, knowing that his next hunt here for Anders will be Harrison Crowther and Michael Gray, those in 3rd and 4th positions overall at this moment. It has been a very interesting race in all manner of ways out there, and all the while I do want to talk about the AM Championship for a moment, because Ben Altria here is desperately fighting Drew Fletcher, and there is good reason for this battle, because behind the pair of them is Dan McCauley, the AM Championship leader, who got himself caught up in an incident on lap 2 and is trying to work himself through. Now, critically for Dan, Drew Fletcher is his teammate.
No, he is, and of course, here's the thing. One wrong move, and Fletcher finds himself in 2nd place as Altria trying to do all he can to at least get around, to hold off, I should say, Fletcher and McCauley, but still, Fletcher falling back just a little bit. Could this be a part of team orders, or is Fletcher just having some sort of early issues with the tires, trying to race for position? But nonetheless, it's going to be interesting to see how that works out as well.
So, with note of Alexander Davidson, he's back out and racing again. He's got John Roberts as his next car to go through. He is 25th in this race at the moment, which is staggering to say the least. So there he is, running about on circuit. He's got Paddy Falconer there just behind that he's staved off over the last lap. But Alexander Davidson now on his final bullet in this race, 53 minutes, and he will be driving with so much anger underneath that helmet. He will desperately want his way through as many places as he can.
Let's see if he has a different pit strategy now as he makes his way out and around. What a strange race, and once again, there goes McCauley, and yeah, Fletcher moved over. I have a feeling that that was also some team orders at play.
Yeah, lights flash. Thank you very much for that one there, Drew. I will really appreciate that pass going along. And you can see moving in towards the final chicane, an easy move over to the right-hand side. I know that you're fighting for the championship. I'm not. I am not going to make your life difficult.
And really, that's smart to do. I mean, wouldn't have made it so obvious, but regardless, it was smart to just let your teammate by and go attack for that 2nd place in the AM right now. As yeah, it's just so much. I'm still trying to wrap my head on all the strange stuff we have seen happen this race to front runners all across the board.
Well, it's kind of reminding me at the moment of the Seattle Mariners, and this is going to be a very weird story that I go to, because apparently the Seattle Mariners are thanking themselves for the playoff run because of an Etsy witch that has effectively given them a hexa spell to save their team and make sure their playoffs work. I wonder if someone's hired an Etsy witch to say, right, these 2 drivers at the top, they are not going to finish where they need to today.
Oh, I just hope nobody has an L flag hanging in their garage, because that hexed the Milwaukee Brewers as they got swept out of the NLCS. Never mind that the LA Dodgers were just so darn good, but still, just not good to kind of hex yourself right there just as you're making a playoff run. We're looking out of the back of Michael Gray in the 273. Here comes Crowther. I don't see any bugs there, but stranger things have happened.
Well, for Harrison Crowther, this will be about how I move on up and gain that third place back again. Michael Gray has been resolute, but up through the Red River, Eau Rouge, and now through Radion Corner there, that flick left. Here comes the drive up the Kemmel Straight. So watch that power of that Mustang move on by the AMG Mercedes, and it's going to be late on the brakes here. I think the fight's going to be, and Michael Gray loses out. That was very committed by Harrison Crowther. He gets it done.
Well, he's been patiently waiting for something to happen. But look, your top three, they're all spread out by a good margin. This battle between Crowther and Gray is still pretty good because Gray has about 2 cars between he and Guthrie in second place in the class in about 10 seconds as well. So a great race out of the 273 Mercedes.
Yeah, we're seeing that amazing racing going through from Michael Gray. He knows he's still got 2 places to deal with here in front before William Guthrie becomes a factor, and he's about 10 seconds clear of him at the moment, so he'll have that. And look at that sea of green there, Jeremy. Everybody's up places in the top 10.
Yeah, every single driver up at the top 10. And look, you have to go all the way back to 17th, Ben Ultra, who's only down 1 spot to find the first driver who has lost position this race. But still, Davidson up to 24, down 23 after that mishap coming out of the pits.
Yep, so that will be a critical factor. So too will the fact that Dan McCauley is right there at 0.6 of a second when they cross the line behind at this stage. But for Michael Gray, he will sit now on Harrison Crowther, give himself another little stint of saving fuel, hanging on to the Mustang, and look to continue the race in that factor. I actually want to give some credit as well to Matthias Pirhanen in second place. It's been a quiet race from him, but that's all you need in a race as crazy as this, a quiet one.
Yeah, that's exactly what you need. Yeah, Pirhanen just making his way up to the front, second place so far out of the number 49. So in spite of their team leader out, Altitude Freem having a great race with Pirhanen and Crowther sitting in second and third for the time being. Look at Watson, even in 6th place in that number 291, 5th in the pro class.
So as Harrison Crowther and Michael Gray make their progress here, you're talking about the pro class here. Crowther 3rd in pro, and Anders Meyer there is 4th in pro, just behind that in 5th place. They look like they're about to chop and change in the background as Adam Watson gets the run and will move that place forward. So a good pass by Adam Watson in the Altitude Esports by Sim Stickers McLaren out there today, and we haven't seen too many McLarens over the course of this season. So Adam Watson in that McLaren trying to give his what for with it at the moment, and I would say that the McLaren out there at this moment with this current balance of performance is what we call a niche pick.
It really is a niche pick. You know, we have a handful of those. You know, we talk about Adam Watson, you know, and Aiden Carter, who's in the Lamborghini. Because most of the field, if you take a look up and down, it's either Mercedes, Mustangs, or BMWs. You don't see too many Porsches, don't see too many McLarens. So to see a McLaren mixed in here in the top 10, it's absolutely fantastic.
It is, and doing very well with that BMW behind of Anders Meyer, and sometimes you really see the personality of a driver come out in the car that they are driving and the way that they drive the car that they choose. And I think sometimes that goes into the elements of why you like certain drives, especially in endurance style circles, because the way that you drive a certain type of car, or have to drive a certain type of car, indicates the way that, you know, sort of the race and personality benefits. Now here is the likes of Chris Chatterton, that's Tom Griffiths trying to find a way through. This will be for 12th place.
Now 12th place overall in class. And I'm not going to do the math right now, but still a lot of great close battle here for those 2 positions as they're working their way coming out of Stavlog and down the long straight heading to the chicane.
Yeah, we're going by the curve of Paul Frere, which will be this small kink right that they go through. It is named after the driver Paul Frere, who raced in the 1960s and got himself a podium in Formula One. But Griffiths here, looking at this, they are combined with each other at the moment, up 25 places. 12 gained for Chatterton, 13 for Tom Griffiths, and Griffiths just not close enough yet to make that move, but he is sitting pretty in this position, knowing they've got about 6 seconds to get to Dickie Simnor there in 11th.
And that's going to be an interesting battle if they can get up to Dickie Simnor, who's fourth right now in Pro-Am. Again, counting, I wasn't told I was going to have to do that in broadcast school, but still, nonetheless, this has been a great battle with Chatterton and Griffiths, as they stayed in lockstep, of course, stayed out of trouble with that early on here in this race. If you're just tuning in, lots of carnage in the first couple of laps in this race, taking out some very fast Pro-Am drivers in the process.
They did, and then just after the first pit stops, both of your championship leaders in Pro running into issues. One just before in the form then of James Boomey, who then spun it out to the pits and then tagged the rear wing off, and then that forced his second car out of the race. And then, of course, Alexander Davidson, who had himself the big drama of having to hit the brakes through double gauche, and then that completely derailing his progress and giving a huge free kick to Ross McFarlane, who's 10 seconds clear at the front of this field. Griffiths working through double gauche at the moment, trying to find a way past the Nomad McLaren out there that works itself off of the exit. Griffiths is trying to do what he can at this moment to keep himself in check, but for the moment it's okay, because you know you're settling down in. You got 45 minutes of this race left to go. In theory, everyone can pit from now and make it home.
They can pit from now, but who's going to take that gamble and try and go up near the front? There's a handful of drivers I think can, but I have a feeling we're going to see the pit stop start in earnest maybe in the next 20 minutes or so. Try and overcut and undercut, and those are always fun times to see who does what. Is Griffiths really trying to get wide, get inside those mirrors of Chatterton, who's in 12th place, trying to get that spot. Let's see, goes to the inside, too far away to make anything happen through the chicane, but these two are just bad. This is the battle of the race right now. It's these two just tooth and nail going for 12th spot.
While they're looking and making their push, here is the battle still between Crowther and Gray. Oh, Harrison, hold on. Boy, Nelly, what a big moment there. Michael Gray will jump right up to the rear, and it does show you how hard Harrison's having to push.
He's trying to push hard to keep that Mercedes and Michael Gray behind him. Gray's just really quick here today. As, you know, here's another thing, too, to consider. Adam Tompkins in the Discord asking, what the heck is this Mustang snap oversteer? Makes no sense at all. So could we be seeing that instead of, you know, hitting the curbs and spinning out?
Well, if you're running through a lot of long speed or long corners like this, and you're struggling to keep the temperature in the tyres and the car snapping, we know that that Mustang is particularly a high car on centre of gravity and has that long wheelbase to work with. So the longer that your wheelbase is, the more likely you are to see that car have massive snaps if it's not connecting the front and the rear out. The cold conditions here today, I think, are playing massive havoc for the Mustangs.
Yeah, we're looking at 19 degrees Celsius air temp, 22 degrees Celsius track temp. So yeah, it's a little chilly for some of these Michelin tires to get up to speed quickly. Normally we see a lap, but we've been seeing more than a lap. I'd say a lap and a half, maybe even 2 laps for some of these cars to get their tire temperatures up to speed. Michael Gray trying to make life impossible for Harrison Crowther. And look at that back there. You've got Adam Watson and Anders Myra, should these two decide to do more than just pass and just exchange door paints.
Well, it's a case of the waiting game for many now as they look to set themselves up for the final stages of this race. We are well over now the halfway stage overall. Pro is a very interesting place in terms of the championship. Pro-Am is looking like it's going Michael Gray's way as we focus here on Anders Meyer on the back of Adam Watson, looking to climb the hill at this moment. Howard Hassan is going to dive in then for what will be his second stop of the race. I would say second scheduled stop of the race. Myra isn't going to be close enough, but I'm also noting that the battle for AM is closing in between Jesse Payne-Wilkins, Ben Altria, and Dan McCauley.
Well, no surprise here. They've been at the front all season long, and now we're watching this battle for 17th, 16th even, as you see Payne-Wilkins in the picture. So now all Altria and McCauley have to do is they have to close in on that 355. And here's the thing, too. Payne-Wilkins, Altria, they've got similar paint schemes, so you know exactly what that means.
They are teammates, and so there will be a sense of, can Ben get the help from Jesse Payne-Wilkins if he can catch onto and latch onto the back of the car in front. The car in front of them is Phil Samways in 15th position, who is down a couple of places, lost out to Håkon Ida Lindmo and the likes of Tom Griffiths and Chris Chatterton in that first round of pit stops, working up through Malmedy corner and dropping back down the hill once again, looking at where they can hit these margins going through this section. You've got a short shoot run when you come out of this corner. You go all the way over to the right-hand side of circuit, open up the big left to Speaker's Corner, and then once you've dealt with Bruchel's and Speaker's Corner, you're into the middle of the lap, which really does test your grip levels in higher speed corners. This is what you call the technical section of the lap.
A technical section indeed, as you come out of Double Gauche and into LaFon's campus and Stavelon. Basically, after that, you can stretch your legs. So you just got to make your way through this section, and then you can either A, draft off somebody, or B, break that draft to try and make stuff happen. But look at how much closer this battle for the lead in AM has gotten. What once was about 10 car lengths has almost cut down to 7 car lengths between first and second in class.
So that movement very critical, and it is also worth keeping in mind that the movement's being made by various drivers. Alexander Davidson is up into 24th and looking for 23rd in a moment as he dives down the inside of Adam Hedgecock to take a place away. So he'll have Byron Crawford next on his pass. Watson still keeps then Anders Myra at bay, but we're talking about damage limitation when you're a minute 40 off the race lead. And I would say in the remaining 40 minutes that you're probably looking at Alexander Davidson trying to reach, at best, top 15.
And if there's anybody who can do it, it's him. I'm just looking at the timing screen. It's so strange to see James Boomey at the bottom of the list in grays. Drew Fletcher's into the pits for his second scheduled pit stop. So that battle between Fletcher, Pennyworth, and all that, that's going to die off just a little bit. We'll see if Fletcher comes out in front of somebody he can actually help here.
Well, let's go to AM, because there's a change for the AM lead as Ben Altria is through on Jesse Payne-Wilkins. And Jesse, your job is to be the widest Mustang in all of Belgium. And for the moment, he just about gets away with it. That was a desperate dive from Desperate Dan, trying to get himself down on through. That was not as dandy as he wanted it to be.
I thought that was going to be a pass for position as we watch the replay of Altria going around, and thank you very much. And now it's my turn to get out front. However, McCauley still all over the back of Payne-Wilkins. Not going to make it easy here in the remaining minutes of this race, depending on when they all pit and how fast they go around the circuit. Oh, a little wide there by Altria, but still able to save it all up.
Michael Gray hits pit lane then, so he's making his final stop of the race and making sure that works for him. John Roberts just leaving pit lane right now, but Jesse Payne-Wilkins is going to have to do a very good job here of keeping at bay a driver as fast as Dan McCauley. And, you know, there was a point heading towards the mid part of the season, Jeremy, where Dan could do no wrong. It seemed like everything he was doing, he was giving all the pro-ams a battle, he was giving some of the pros a battle out there in terms of what he could do. And for the moment, he is going to hug that rear wing here and try and figure out, can I get to the inside? Jesse, I don't think is going to have much, except can I fend on the outside? They're going to get very close together. McCauley over-rotates over the anti-cut curb, and it's staved off again.
Well, remember a couple of weeks ago in the interview I asked Dan, do you want to promote you? He goes, no, I hope they don't promote me. And since then, he's had a couple of hiccups nonetheless, but still able to contend for this AM Championship as he's still all over the back of Payne Wilkins. He's still got a while until he can in earnest make a good move, so we'll stay with him. I have a feeling the Camel Straight is going to be his playground as he makes his way up Eau Rouge and Redillion. Oh, look at those jumps there off the curbs, all over the back bumper. McCauley gonna dive to the inside of Payne Wilkins. They're side by side, neck and neck. Does McCauley have enough to stave off? And he's trying to move, a little bit of a touch as he tries to move in, but McCauley still goes up to second place. Now has his eyes set once again on Ben Altria.
Buzzes the tower as he goes by Jesse Payne Wilkins. Dan McCauley is second in class, and after the spin that he had, getting caught up in that massive incident, that could have been everything. Look at this. There's no deviation from the line from Jesse Payne Wilkins. That is all pinch there from Dan McCauley.
That is one way to make sure that the driver you're passing doesn't make a return move, as there may have been some sort of switchback there through that whole complex, all the way through the second part of those turns. But nonetheless, that gap has been opened up to about 2-3 car lengths after the pass coming out of the end of the Camel Straight.
So, with that pass made, it's now phases set for Dan McCauley. He will need to catch Ben Altria here in this one. He'll have 35 minutes and 1 pit stop to do in order to make that happen. And Ben has absolutely jumped away at this moment to the tune of 2 seconds.
So that's given Ben a bit of a chance. Now we're on board with Anders Meyer as he tries to get around Adam Watson, your top 5 all-pro drivers, as Guthrie has fallen to the wayside of Myra in 6th place. Tell you what, the 3 positions gained hasn't told the story of that BMW. He has fought some hard battles throughout this race.
He has, but I also think he's been very clever about the way he's done it. He sat on the back of everybody and said, while I am in these battles and these very tough battles, I am happy to save fuel and give myself the advantage at the very end of the race. So I think Anders Meyer here, the Norwegian, has been incredibly clever with the way he's been getting about this business. With William Guthrie 7 seconds down the road and due a pit stop, he will need a stop of about 33 seconds to beat out Michael Gray, all things considered, over in the final stages of this race. It is a very, very important end to what this race will be. And as they work past the Technic Future campus there on the inside, Adam Watson now thinking about, can I maybe stretch my legs a little bit and build a margin away from Anders Meyer, because he's had a very good middle sector.
Yeah, that middle sector was absolutely fantastic out of Watson, able to open up a bigger gap so the big grill doesn't get any sort of cooling. But look at the closure rate of Myra to Watson, especially here in the chicane. It's really going to close right up as both of them run that anti-cut curbing there on the chicane. And yeah, once again, Watson well within striking distance.
Yep, so Anders Meyer knows where his car is better compared to the McLaren, and he will try and use it. Look at how aggressive he goes into the last horse hairpin. It's slightly on camber down there on the inside, so it gives that big slingshot effect through the opening corner that allows you this run down the hill to the lowest point of the circuit, and then you crest up this almighty rise of Eau Rouge and Raidillon. And then you're on the Camel Straight. And so what you've got, lights flashing from Adam Watson. Please, Colin, out the way. And Colin Sansom dutifully obliges there in the green camo Porsche and lets them go as lap traffic. So Myra now gets, again, another free run, and Adam Watson gets exactly what he wants again. Clean air to work with.
I know Sansom doesn't want to hear it, but a pretty sportsmanlike move out of the Porsche to just get out of the way and let the faster cars through, because this battle for 4th is growing once again with Watson and Myra 1 and 2. Here comes Dan McCauley into the pits. Let's see if this is the strategy that he needs to get up front of the AM class.
If it is, it's going to be a very good strategy that gets it done, unless we forget that Alexander Davidson as well is trying to make some progress out there on circuit, so he'll pick up a place there with that pit stop, and that will move him up into 18th place then with that move, because he's through on the likes of Phil Samways, he's through on the likes of Chris Chatterton, Adam Hedgecock. He will have Ben Bennyworth as the next car he will try and pilot his way on by. So that for Alex Davidson is going to be critical. So too, worth noting, because he would have taken a spare car here, Jeremy, that car would have been full of fuel.
Exactly, so that's going to help him out to kind of extend that run. So we'll see if he can get in the top 15 or further with that in mind.
So if that means he's only got to do a splash and dash at the end of this race, that is a big help to Alexander Davidson. If this has happened in a window and it was very quick out of the pits where he got that done within 15 minutes, he's probably looking at maybe one more stop. If it was slightly after, which I don't think it was, he would have been able to have saved the pit stop by the virtue of taking the tow and going back to the pit. So I think he's still due one more, just it's going to be shorter than everybody else out there over the course of this race. So that's what is to come with the final half an hour's worth of racing. Ticking over here from Spa, a 12.7 second lead for Ross McFarlane over Matthias Pirhanen as we are in the middle of that pit window out there overall. Anders Meyer still trying to give chase to Adam Watson.
And one has a 1 or 2. Myra's just sitting there trying to save fuel so he can extend his pit window as well. But I'm very interested to see the how we see the Davidson with the pits. He's up to 17th right now. See how long he takes it. Really, he's at the point where he can just do a quick splash and dash and not have to worry about tires, because we know how long those tires last. Tom Griffiths into the pits, and now here's the thing: we're also waiting. I think we're waiting Ben Ultria into the pits as well. Take a look at Ben Ultria. Looks like he still needs to take another pit.
Yeah, he certainly will do. So with Tom Griffiths losing out the place now to the likes of Ben Bennyworth here, Alexander Davidson is jumping up and just picking them off one at a time. His next car to catch is the Pro-Am Championship leader, Aiden Carter.
Yeah, so Carter also do a pit stop. We'll see if Carter decides to come into pits before Davidson catches up, because it is a 11-second lead that Carter has over Davidson as Adam Hedgecock, I should say, gets around Griffiths. Hedgecock we saw earlier. It was Hedgecock, but Hedgecock having some hay here for 18th.
Leader in then, Ross McFarlane is going to make his final stop of the race here with about half an hour to go. Matthias Pirhanen, who pitted before Ross McFarlane in the first stint, is now going to pit after him here in the second one. So Ross just getting his service sorted. Adam Watson will also dive down into the pit, and it's a nice distance to leave yourself for a stint at the end. Half an hour, it puts you back on cycle. It's effectively half a stint to get you home of a regular race.
Exactly, so now all you need to do a short pit. 24.3 was the pit stop time out of McFarlane. Now you just don't need to mess it up coming out of the pits. And you can kind of say that more to Adam Watson, because you don't want to do what your teammate did earlier.
Well, I'm looking at McFarlane out of the pits. He's going to have some company as he comes out. Jack Osborne is right there behind him. And with cold tyres at the moment for Ross McFarlane, Jack could find a way through here on the Kemmel Straight. So watch out for this as we watch Watson exiting the pits and going away. We need to go up to Ross McFarlane. It looks like he's going to get the help he wants out there, because Osborne's not going to go and get that move. And critically, will come out just in front of Tommy Vettel as well. So there'll be a bit of gap now to work with before he reaches William Guthrie.
Still plenty of time for that to happen, but yeah, I have a feeling that Osborne knows he's out of class from the driver ahead of him. Don't push the issue too much, because you also have to get out there and get your final pit stop. He's 15 laps into this stint, so still plenty of time for him to come in. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in the next lap or so, but McFarlane looking nice and pretty as the aggregate leader on pit stops.
And so when Ross McFarlane's got that gap, he knows he's built this one beautifully, and he will try and do what he can. Patrick Falconer also now diving down into pit lane. So he will now be making the calls. As Tom Griffiths is in the wall. So Tom Griffiths has had troubles out there somewhere. He's got a damaged rear wing. He's done it with contact from Phil Samways.
Man, Griffiths had a great race himself, and we'll see the replay here as, yeah, just a lot of rear wings being bent up as we're seeing Griffiths just comes off the corner a little bit slow and a little bit of a tap. Well, yeah, once again, he hit the brakes. So another case of another Mustang hitting the brakes there before either contact, the car just gets sideways.
Well, it was starting to go around. I think there was a tiny tap there for Tom, and then he was trying to do everything he could at that point to hold himself together. The car snapped the other way, and the Series 1 Racing number 23 Pro-Am now finds himself limping back home. This will be the best view of it here on how close Phil Samways got to the rear. You can see he's really trying to work through campus, now heading to Stavelot corner here, this right. He's right underneath, and there, yeah, he just pushes him around the corner and has a slide of his own.
Well, it's not like he had anywhere to go. You know, you have a car ahead of you who's slowing and losing it, and another one behind who's wanting to go. So you really can't fault him. I think it's just one of those racing incidents.
You really can't. Ross McFarlane, though, hasn't been able to fully escape here from Jack Osborne, who's done very well holding the slipstream right now. So this is an important moment of the race, and yeah, he's done the job of getting it down the lane. Look at that. We talk about crabbing and how much there is of it here when it gets to iRacing, but look at that. That is a huge amount of counter steer that's needed to keep that going in the right direction.
Well, we'll see him get the rear wing back up. The car will be pointed forward, and he'll get back underway. Davidson in for his final scheduled pit stop from 16th. So not going to make too much of a growth in the grid. However, still some drivers with pit stops to come, like Piernan, Crowther, but that's not the big worry there. We'll see how many pro drivers that he has to pass once he gets back out.
Well, he's had Aiden Carter in the pits on the same lap, so that puts him on the same sequence there as him. So for Aiden Carter, he will know that's the direct challenge that he will deal with, as Alexander Davidson now falls outside of the top 20 once again. Then in this one, still waiting in the next 10 minutes or so for the final stops of Piernan, of Crowther, of Co. And Piernan, on cue, has just hit the lane, so that will give Harrison Crowther the race lead.
See when Crowther comes in, but yeah, now the Mustang goes out the front, has a big gap between he and Anders Myra, who now comes in the pit. So more pit stops are happening. Would not be surprised to see Crowther run just a little bit harder to try and get some sort of gap to where he can battle with somebody for a position on the podium here at the end of the race as Guthrie decides not to pit.
And Ross McFarlane will go by Matthias Piernan in the pits, who is over 20 seconds now on this stop, 21.5 all told, and Ross McFarlane now still holds that net race lead. Anders Myra in for the stop. I'm wondering where Myra's going to come out in comparison to Michael Gray. Gray's only making his way now along the front stretch, and Myra here is going to come out quite a fair ways ahead, so well done on that. Michael Gray took the track position at the first stop and's given it all back here in the second.
What a fantastic pit strategy out of Myra. Now he's a little further away from Piernan. Oh, a little bit of an off there by Guthrie as he takes a couple wheels off of the gravel trap exiting Malmedy corner. But Guthrie, he still owes a pit stop. So McFarlane may be back in the lead sooner rather than later.
So for the likes there of Harrison Crowther and William Guthrie, we know those stops are there. McFarlane's there at 5 seconds. We'll take a look. Goes over the curb, all 4 tyres off the road. That is an off track then. It is 2 tyres or half a car off in gravel and grass. That is an off track here at Spa, and on asphalt sections of the circuit, it is all 4 tyres beyond the white line or the outside of the curb. That is what indicates what an off-track is around this place. Harrison Crowther now with a lap lead at the front of this field and will be very much due a pit stop.
And that's going to come any minute now. If it doesn't come this lap, it will come next lap. He's got 16 seconds to William Guthrie about 21 seconds back to McFarlane. He's going to make another lap. Now, something to think about. A delta, especially McFarlane, he ran a 24-second pit stop. His delta was 44 seconds, about 20-second delta up and down pit road, not counting the pit stop. I don't think he's going to make it. He won't lose as much time as he would, you know, the full pit stop as we see Guthrie come into the pits. But still, this race is basically McFarlane's to lose at this point.
So with William Guthrie in, he'll be looking at how close he will be to those around. With Jack Osborne and Tommy Vedel also following in, it falls to Michael Gray for Pro-Am. We know that Dickie Simnor's going to have to make a pit stop at some point too, as he sits in 8th place currently, but Michael Gray is the key. How quickly off of the drive is there going to be from William Guthrie? Michael Gray makes his way along the front stretch now, and Guthrie leaves the pits. This is going to be very, very close here on the exit, because Gray's got to hit the brakes at turn 1. In has come Dickie Simnor. Michael Gray works his way through. This is going to be side by side off the exit for the Pro-Am lead. You see it there in the front end of shot, and Michael Gray sweeps on by and lets the lights go. Does William Guthrie? He's got a race.
He's got a race now, got to get up to speed quickly and get within a draft. Not now, but probably coming out of Sandalo, where he still has some good drafting help. But still, Guthrie able to get out. Here's the replay. And yeah, just such luck for Michael Gray as he comes out ahead of William Guthrie, and Guthrie flashing the lights coming down the endurance straight.
Well, it shows you that the gap that was built by Michael Gray to give himself the undercut, to give himself some space in that middle stint, it's now come back, and he's paid the Pied Piper and realises he's in a race. Byron Crawford now hits pit lane and looks to make his pit stop, so we've still got to focus on the likes of Ben Altria, who's due. Jesse Payne-Wilkins is, I believe, made his stop potentially. So there's a driver who has had himself then thoughts, or is that Jesse Payne-Wilkins ahead now of Ben Altria? Altria, in fact, has come into the pit and come back out again, and he's a mile ahead, now, of Dan McCauley. So great stop by Ben Altria.
Yeah, not sure what happened there with Altria. Payne-Wilkins, let's see the gap here between the two drivers. There may be a good enough gap to where Payne-Wilkins might be battling with Altria here if once Payne-Wilkins takes that second and final pit stop. I'm interested to see how that one works. Now, Crowther still not a delta gap behind, but he won't have to take as long as a pit stop, so he may be sitting in 3rd place between McFarlane and Pironen. And yeah, Pironen with a fantastic race, sitting 2nd on aggregate as everybody still needs to pit.
So, in this dance that they will deal with in the final stages of this race, who is going to stand up and say they've got what's needed? Michael Gray sees William Guthrie move on over, try and find that place, and it's not going to happen down at La Source. They're going to have to start climbing the hill again and say, what can they do? More AMs in the forms of Colin Sansom and Jacques Siva, who have both made their stop. But now through the left of Eau Rouge and Radion, it's now the climb that William Guthrie needs. And will the launch of that Ford Mustang make its pass here against Michael Gray? Gray can only watch as Guthrie's on the inside, flashing the lights, going, yeah, boy, this is mine. Down the inside he goes, into Lake Coombe. Now, can it be crossed back up by Michael Gray? Knows the answer. Guthrie takes Pro-Am lead.
What a fantastic pass there. And Guthrie, I've never seen anybody so happy before the end of the race to flash the lights as he does. But Gray not going to let him have it that easy as he closes with under car length down into the corner. Still, I've got to say this, Guthrie still has yet to lose a Mercedes, because once they get on the straight, that's when the gap's really going to open up.
So if that gap opens and does exactly what is necessary to do, and that margin can be built, this will be easier for Michael Guthrie. William Guthrie. If Michael Gray can sit himself there as in finally, with 18 minutes and 18 seconds left, Harrison Crowther hits the lane. We're expecting him to come out about 3rd. here in terms of the pit stop, so we'll see what Harrison can do. He hits his marks, and Ross McFarlane will now look to re-inherit that race lead as it stays close in the Pro-Am battle at the moment. Crowther looking to get that stationary stop time. 9 seconds, 10 seconds done. Pirhinen is going to be next then in terms of whether he's going to go through. There's a bit of a gap to Anders Myra out there. 16.4 seconds in the stop. He is well clear of the likes of Matthias Pirhinen, and Howard Hassan, as we see him lead, as we see the likes of Crowther lead the pits, has just hit the ink point limit.
A brilliant pit stop out of Crowther. He doubts both of us wrong, where we thought he was going to come out third, going to come out ahead of Matthias Pirhinen. So it's still Mustang top 3 for Pro in the closing stages of this race, but a fantastic pit stop out of the 30s. The Altitude-free Esports Mustangs sit second and third.
But critically, for the team's championship, they will only score that third place car and not the second, because Harrison Crowther is not affiliated to a team. He's running this season as a privateer. Michael Gray then trying to figure out this move and whether he will have any angle of attack to make it happen. Now, that straight line speed is really important from that Mustang. It's making life so difficult for the Mercedes that is trying to work its way through every corner to try and pick up that run. Might have a chance here down into Bruxelles. Not going to get that done there, as he's not late enough on the brakes, and the worry will be behind as well, because Adam Watson is only a second back.
And that is well within striking distance. As we know, Watson, he can make anything happen. Gray with no time. Did he go? No, he's just that close. Oh, I had to take a double check. I thought Gray went off somewhere, but Gray, he's all over the back of Guthrie.
He is pretty much the biggest nightmare in this middle sector, and William Guthrie knows it, but it's very tough to pass here in the middle of this circuit. You can work yourself for a move, try and get the lunge down the inside, say maybe here at Stavelot Corner or campus into Stavelot, but look at him, he just sits there trying to nibble on the back of that Mustang. But at the moment it's the case of whenever you need to put that foot flat to the floor, it's a case that William Guthrie has got all the answers that Michael Gray is providing for this test. So this is becoming a very, very tough run of this race through Blanchimont, a scarily fearsome corner there, that left-hander. And will there be a lunge down at the final chicane, or is this a case of cards close to the chest? I think it's more of the latter than the former out there, as they will now have Paul Smith to try and lap.
Well, they've got plenty of time, plenty of distance to make any sort of pass. And I was watching timing. Look at who's made his way up to 10th. It's Arthur Thurtle. Also, Ben Altria did get ahead of Jesse Payne-Wilkins, but 0.7 of a second separates our AM leaders.
Yep, so those AM leaders will now be looking around in the final stages and saying, what are they going to manage to do? Jesse Payne-Wilkins, well, your pro-AM leaders, not much between them. Your AM leader, Jesse Payne-Wilkins, here, I think, is going to be looking at this, or was leader, now looking at Ben Altria just in front. So the two Full Tilt Motorsport cars, or Full Tilt V Motorsport cars, pretty much together. They've done this absolutely perfectly, and Dan McCauley has been left by the wayside after a quicker first pit stop then, by the looks of things. So they have got exactly what they want. Ben Altria, again, as it stands, knock on wood, closing down the gap of the AM Championship.
And of course, McCauley at least has a decent gap to Bennyworth. So barring any sort of major issue, McCauley's set for third. We just got to figure out who's going to win in the AM class, as you see Altria opening up just a little bit of a gap, 1 second to Jesse Payne-Wilkins. So gotta say that the third pit stop was a great bit of strategy there by Altria, as we see this battle tighten up between Guthrie and Gray. Watson sitting there knocking on the doors. They've gotten around Paul Smith, who's at least one lap down, but now comes a position of are we still going to see the cards close to the chest, or can Gray make the pass heading into the chicane?
Well, Michael Gray wants it. It's a 3-car scrap, and they'll both lose places if Adam Watson gets by the pair of them. So this might be, how do you want to bring the Pro into the Pro-Am Championship battle? That's where they might sit and go, where do I want to put this in? I also want to put into perspective as well, Alexander Davidson is 18th, He is 2 seconds a lap quicker than the driver in 15's Chris Chatterton, and there's about 7 laps of racing left in this race. So I would say that he could even get up as high as 13th if he can keep the pace up, Alexander Davidson, and that would be a good haul of points from the issue that he ran into today. Guthrie then staying close, but look at a braking distance closed down in by that McLaren. Adam Watson is rampaging, looking for a way by Gray and Guthrie, the Pro-Ams.
Well, as good as Ross McFarlane has been all race long, plus with the troubles that James Boomey's had, the championship's going to stand on its head for the pro category, but I think James Boomey might be the ladder to get up to the championship points lead might be just a little bit tougher. And Gray flipped on the windshield wipers as he goes to the inside of Guthrie, headed down the long camel straight, has the nose out front, takes a position for the time being, and look who wants to come in and play as well. It's Adam Watson.
Well, the best defense is a good offense, and if you don't want to be overtaken by Adam Watson, simply put here right now, Jeremy, put a car in between you and him.
And that's exactly what he wants to do. But then again, that means he would have to back up, and that threatens Michael Guthrie to get around as well. So between the Mercedes, the Mustang, and the McLaren, boy, you just got a train full of M's ahead of you.
It's all there, and you've definitely got chances to make it happen. And it is worth noting now, Alex Davidson has found the back of Phil Samways. So in the next lap or so, we should expect Phil Samways to lose that place then in terms of moves. So Michael Gray now sees William Guthrie, and Guthrie isn't able to hold the same speed through the middle sector. That McLaren is waiting for a chance to attack back through to gain a position here, and I would say that if Adam Watson wants this, then he is going to take the earliest available opportunity to try and make this move. But this is where the Mustang starts to shine, heading over towards Blanchemont corner. Look at the way that gap gets reeled in, a couple tenths of a second just out of the back pocket. Look at the overspeed here from the Mustang, and the door is left open here, so here's a chance for Watson on the inside as well, trying to work the outside line. Is it going to work on this inside door? Has to be left out, and look at that ironclad door slammed shut on Adam Watson. Nowhere to go. He was trying to pick it up and under on everyone.
Well, it was too little too late for that, but still plenty of racing room left. Nothing's going to happen here at the La Source hairpin. They'll have to go through Eau Rouge and Rodillion, and that is when you will see the 2 cars behind Michael Gray really close in. Watson's doing all he can to get into the mirrors of Guthrie. Now they're through Eau Rouge, up the hill to Rodillion, and on through Camel Straight. The draft party will still have to become part. Here comes Watson. He's going to try and look to the inside. He's going to make the move to the inside. But will that mean that Guthrie's closed off? Yes, it does, because Watson can try to go for the 2-for-1 special. He does.
He's too deep, though. He's going to go straight across the circuit here and serve a slowdown penalty. So he's got to do that on the outside line, and that's going to be close. They bang doors off the exit of the corner, and through goes Michael Gray. Then to retake that place, it's covered off on the middle of the section, and it's critically penalty served by Adam Watson. So he got one move done, serving the penalty, but that one off the circuit. So that'll be a little bit contentious as they go. Alexander Davidson, by the way, through on Phil Samways, and will be eyeing up Aiden Carter over the next laps or so. So every place will matter in the Pro Championship, as it's a case of place after place after place. Michael Gray now has a gap.
And I would say even a little questionable defense move on William Guthrie going into Brussels, as he kind of slammed that door shut on him. So Guthrie has fallen back a couple of car lengths, but still trying to get inside that top 5 and gain those precious overall points. And now he's all over the back of Michael Gray as he looks to the inside, going through Paul Ferrer, still side by side as they come their way. The McLaren tries to force his way around the outside of the Mercedes.
Tries it, and 2 Adam Blanchemont, there he goes! Just like that, Adam Watson, what a save to keep that pointing straight. Oh my, Adam having a massive slide, unable to hold it steady, and William Guthrie is back in position now with a prime chance to deal with Michael Gray. What an important move that will prove to be by the end of this race, and Watson will take another look. You push it too wide, you hope that you've got downforce. It's taken away with some dirty air alongside you. Adam Watson, look at this first and foremost, has the wiggle on the slide. What a save!
That was a fantastic save. I thought he was going to lose it into the gravel, but this has given new life to William Guthrie for that Pro-Am lead. Going once again down the Camel Straight. We know how good the Mustang is on the straightaways. He tried to make past last lap, but Watson was was blocking him in for the pass. Not too far away this time by, with I would say maybe about 3 or 4 laps left to go. Jake, this is going to be going down to the wire.
It absolutely will, and I think we're not going to see this one decided for Pro-Am until the very last laps of racing will be conducted. So put yourself in that position, and also keep an eye out on Aiden Carter and Alexander Davidson. There'll be a look at that battle for 16th position right now, and every point will matter. Gray will build his gap now through the middle sector, and William Guthrie will be there. But remember, every point will matter for Davidson as he will try and work his gap, and that'll be another place, mind you, for these AM drivers who, with the day that Aiden Carter's been having, will take the championship lead if it stays like this for Michael Gray in the Pro-Am. So a lot to try and work themselves through. Davidson has launched down the inside, and he's going to have a little bit of contact with Aiden Carter, but he's going to get through off camera. But now here comes the run from Guthrie.
Yeah, Aiden Carter, they're going to come away from this race and kind of be licking their wounds after so many problems. A lot of drivers we don't normally see make errors, have made big errors here this week. Of course, any little error at Spa usually leads to a big one. The exceptions being Adam Watson, one of them, trying to save himself from going into the wall, into the gravel, because if he was gone in the gravel, it would have been race over. As now Guthrie tries again, another relay of Michael Gray. And you know what, at this point, I wonder how flat that Mustang will be around Eau Rouge and Rodillion to try and get that Pro-Am lead.
Righty on is a corner where if you can get the run out of it, you are set and sorted on the Camel Straight. You see that gap between them at a couple tenths of a second, and it is becoming more and more difficult to make this one work, to see this one happen in a way that is going to be beneficial. But William Guthrie can extend the range then of that engine over 260 kilometers an hour. He is 5 Ks quicker in a straight line, that he'll have to hit the brakes because he's not quite quick enough to get it done on Michael Gray heading up into that section of road. So there was a close attempt there as Byron Crawford has damage then, and that will be him done, and that was right in front of your overall race leaders there. So he just loops the back end and says, oh, there's not much I can do. Ross McFarlane was 3 cars back of that line. What a massive carbon fiber confetti shower that is.
Yeah, the carbon fiber just showers all over. Thankfully, the Tech Pro barriers, they were saved from any sort of damage, but Byron Crawford, that was a fast crash going into the gravel. Back to this battle for 5th overall, the Pro-Am lead, Michael Gray, your leader there in the 273, and yep, there's the back end of that Ferrari again.
Yeah, it goes to show you how big of a hit that was so late on here in this one, and Guthrie remains close. Chris Chatterton is next under threat from Alexander Davidson, and that would be for a top 15 finish here today, and that would be huge. And a few seconds down the road of that is Jesse Payne-Wilkins. That might be a bit too far for Davidson with how little of this race there is left, because Ross McFarlane has ticked over, and it might be close here whether we're going to have 1 or 2 laps to go when he next crosses the line. So keep that in focus. Guthrie close here on the brakes as he works himself into that final chicane, but Michael Gray has got all the answers for the test paper.
All the answers for now, but will there be a pop quiz on their final lap? We'll soon find out together here shortly, as once again, Michael Gray has had all the answers that he's needed to William Guthrie's questions and just little quizzes. So we'll see what happens here in the closing stages of this race. Again, this is for the lead in Pro-Am for this endurance race, and what an endurance race it has been. It's had twists, turns, and even chapters we didn't even think were possible.
There's been some incredible running, but here comes William Guthrie now. He's got a big run. Oh, and he's got a bump draft. Oh, this is I would say, coded in secrecy right now. He's going to wait to the last lap when he gets an almighty run to make it happen. He's pushed Michael Gray around because I think they're both realising as Colin Sansom goes over the limit that Adam Watson is going to be a big threat in the final stages. Sansom over 20 instant points, and Chris Chatterton is going to be under immense pressure now for 15th because Alexander Davidson is there.
Davidson really making his way up through the field. There he is right there. And he's going to try, I think he's going to make the pass here on the Radion straight, I should say. Radion through the Kemmel straight. It's been a long, long race, but nonetheless, Davidson, who's probably been there and back all throughout the race, not able to keep that McLaren in tow, but still coming around Kemmel and down the straight will reel him in. Does he get the pass done? I don't think so. Well, he pops out now, and indeed he does. He's going to be late on the brakes. There goes another position for Davidson.
And critically, McFarlane's crossed with 2:17 remaining on the clock. So this is going to be 2 laps to go. So anyone who's tight on fuel heading home are going to have to go 1 lap longer. This is going to be a case of going into overtime here today around this circuit. And it's all at the behest of Ross McFarlane with a 10-second gap at the front of this field. So he's going to be in control of all of this one now, Jeremy, and everybody now is going to be staring down at the fuel gauge. It's an extra lap critically for Alexander Davidson because right in front of him is Jesse Payne-Wilkins.
Now, once he gets around Payne-Wilkins, that's a 14th, a little bit of pass back there, as looks like that, Payne-Wilkins so far, a little bit ahead, I would say about 3 or 4 car lengths from Davidson. Of course, once he gets around that, then you got Ben Ultria, your AM leader, who just came around out of view. So this is going to be interesting. I think that Davidson gets both of those drivers at the end of the race, but how many more will he get when the fuel runs out for some of these cars?
Well, I don't think he's going to get any more than that. William Guthrie for Pro-Am has gone for the move then for the race lead of category. He's on the inside. Gray's going to try and pinch him then as he works his way through. It's going to be close between them, but it's held by Gray.
What a great move to pinch him down. Still, to Malmedy, he goes to the inside. Going to make Guthrie go around the long way. Not going to make it happen through Brussels. And still, Speaker's Corner. We saw how close these two get through here. So far, so good, and they've got one more chance to do it. Colin Sampson's the first one who has to come into the pits for fuel.
Yep, so Colin Sansom has to come in. I wonder here about Ross McFarlane as he works himself now through this section. He'll have 20 seconds remaining on the clock here, and it's going to be very close to see whether Barney will get a checkered flag waved out or whether it will be a white flag. I think it will be a white flag as he works himself into this section because the timer is ticking down, and it is a white flag here for Barney because he's going to cross with 1 second remaining on the clock then. So that is big in terms of how this finish will go. Ross McFarlane knows that this is the final lap of his race, and there is still Pro-Am to be decided out there overall between William Guthrie and Michael Gray. Gray's given himself a tiny bit of a gap. There is still the main factor that Alexander Davidson now has the pass done on Jesse Payne-Wilkins. That's put him up into 14th, and I think it's a little bit too far for Ben Ultria at this moment, but Ultria could get an extra place on Håkan Ida Lindmo on the final lap of this race. Jack Osborne has to splash and dash at the end of this race. That's going to cost him time and some very important places because he was right behind Tommy Vettel, and he might fall behind Arthur Thurtle and maybe even Dickie Simnor as well with that tiny bit of fuel that he needs to supple on to get to the end. There goes Arthur Thurtle working his way now to try and move through, and keep an eye on William Guthrie now because he's going to get the run up the hill on his last chance to get it done up over at Lake Coombe. Guthrie with a monstrous run. William Guthrie is going to go to the inside. We've got cameras on it now, and he's just not close enough on the brakes. He thought about it to the inside. That Mercedes is so good at holding itself on the brakes and keeps its line. Now to Bruxelles. Is there a wiggle? There's 2 off the exits defended. Now to the inside, half covered, and then that position is sorted out for the moment. That middle sector, it might all come down for Pro-Am right to the final whistle. But coming out then of the critical corner of Stavelot is Ross McFarlane. And he has had a race today that people who are third in the championship continue to dream of. And it is the picturesque, perfect story for him. First, out of the picture, Alexander Davidson. Second, out of the picture, James Boomey. This is fairy tale for Ross McFarlane. And McFarlane says that he is more than welcome to fight for this championship. A big win at Spa.
Talk about luck here, and we've got to have some luck if you're William Guthrie, because Michael Gray has opened up a half-second gap coming out of Stavelot and into Blanchimont, and it's going to take one wiggle, but I don't think it's going to be enough for Michael Gray to lose any sort of position. As Guthrie throwing all he can going into the chicane, but I think it's going to be too little, too late. The Mustang takes a last-minute dive, but it's not going to be enough. Your Pro-Am winner is a 273 of Michael Gray, takes the checkered flag, has enough fuel, and wins.
A critical result for Michael Gray, and it will give him the Pro-Am Championship lead with 4 rounds of racing to go. And now we wait for Ben Altria to try and make that progress. He's not going to catch Håkon Idolindmo here between now and the end of this race, but Ben Altria spun it around on the second lap of the race and needed everything to come up clean to go and gain himself back, and to have a day like this where he is going to pick up some important points. Between him and Dan McCauley is 5 drivers in between: Davidson, Payne Wilkins, Chatterton, Carter and Samways. Ben Altria will work himself up, and this AM category, which looked done and dusted about 3 rounds ago, is alive and kicking. Ben Altria takes AM here in Spa.
Well, tears for fears, I like that, but as the cars come down, where does Alex Davidson end up? 14th after spinning, hitting the wall, having to take the backup car. A good save for the WSR Esports Mustang in 14th. What a wild race that we have seen today.
A fantastic race and some wonderful battling that we've seen up and down the order, but Ross McFarlane takes the victory by 11.2 over Harrison Crowther, making everyone go a lap longer. Matthias Pirhanen would be the last driver on the podium. A great quiet day from him as Anders Meyer would finish 4th, and your leading Pro-Am would be Michael Gray in 5th place, ahead of William Guthrie in what was a titanic scrap between 2 full-tilt teams out there working for what they could. Adam Watson would finish off in 2nd with a massive save through Blanchimont, as Tommy Vettel would be 8th ahead of Arthur Thurtle, and a great top 10 today for Dickie Simnor. They're up 11 spaces over this race. Jack Osborne would be the loser in that regard. He would lose out over the line by 0.006 of a second to Dickie Simnor for that top 10 on his desperate return back to circuit. Håkon Idolindmo would finish 12th ahead of Ben Altria, who would be winner of category in 13th. A day that can be said for Alexander Davidson of just the back-stepping out, a screen freeze, not sure what it was, but Alexander Davidson 14th. That will really hurt. It could have been a major, major boon today for him in the championship. Instead, he takes small pickings. Jesse Payne Wilkins is 15th and Chris Chatterton is in P16. Aiden Carter won't be too happy about his day. His Pro-Am Championship lead falls away in 17th, with Phil Samways 18th, and Daniel McCauley will see the AM category championship close for him in 19th place. Ben Bennyworth would round out your top 20 as the first car a lap down. We had 10 cars a lap down in this one, with Patrick Faulkner and Adam Hedgecock. Drew Fletcher 1 lap down with John Roberts, the gentleman. You then got Paul Smith and Jacques Eva then a lap down. Byron Crawford and Colin Sansom. We saw Colin Sansom pick up the penalty points along with Tom Griffiths there in 29th. And your retirees include Howard Hassan, down 11 laps by finishes end. James Boomey, a huge blow for his title hopes, along with Dennis Grabowski, Taylor Lane, and all of these drivers down at the bottom here. Opening laps for Brian Loins, for Josh Boot, for David Mendonca, and as well for Adam Tompkins. 37 drivers in all here today, and a very tough day at the office to be said. But Jeremy, it's a day where everybody who needed points found them, except those who are at the top. This was a day of change out there in this endurance, and we expect that, but they've got 4 rounds left in this season, and they know how tough the run-in for this championship is going to be heading to Daytona.
It's plenty of opportunity to make up points, but we know how good these drivers are in these sprint races, so finding those extra points are going to be difficult for the likes of James Boomey, for the likes of Alex Davidson, and even you take a look at some of the other classes as well. There are a lot of front runners who ran into problems, so you know, Spa is one of those it's a wild card race, just like Daytona will be at the end of the season, but I didn't think we were going to pull up the Joker at this point.
No, the Joker in the pack seemingly has made itself known. And Jeremy, there was some great racing in Pro-Am and in Am. Those stories are going to be fantastic, with Altria closing in on Macaulay. And what a scrap between what would surely be now 1 and 2 in the championship, Michael Gray and William Guthrie.
Yeah, no, that Michael Gray, William Guthrie battle playing out all race long was spectacular to sit back and watch. And I can't wait to see if they go toe-to-toe again the rest of the season. And Ben Altria coming back from a lap 2 spin to win the AM category on 3 pit stops, mind you. 3 pit stops it took to win while everybody else did too. I think that right there is the story of the race.
It very much is, and let's talk about where we are next time out in terms of racing action, because as the series works itself towards the end of the season, we will be looking over and saying this is where the final stages are going to be absolutely magical. I believe it is going to be the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya that will be next on the horizon for us, and that will be some wonderful action that we will be keeping in play for, because it's a circuit that is very well known as a dyno test style track out there. So in terms of how everybody looks to try and pull this together, where everybody is saying, right, this is what I need to be doing at the highest level, I would look around and say, right, this is where I need to be finding the best results, because you've only got 2 technicals and 2 sprints left to try and make this championship work. 8 races to try and build your season.
And I think Barcelona is a fantastic sports car course with plenty of passing zones and a lot of great technical areas that really test the might and mighty of the drivers. So it's going to be very interesting to see who comes out on top, and I cannot wait to see what we have next week in Spain.
Yep, you can only catch it with us here and RaceSpotTV. So if you haven't done so already, make sure that you like, that you share, that you subscribe if you're here for the first time. We're on the road to 35,000 here on YouTube, and it would be absolutely wonderful to see you along with us for that. But 7 days from now is going to be the all-important battleground that we sit ourselves with. A wonderful day's worth of racing, but one which has gone and shaken up 3 different championships. It closes for Ben Altria against Dan Macaulay. A critical race win in 13th place in category. You would say that is the job well done to make that better. You look at Pro-Am, what a scrap between William Guthrie and the likes of Michael Gray. It's Gray who will find that it's all sunshine and rainbows for him, but there will be a little look and say, that was all right. But we know that there's still a long way to go. And Alexander Davidson picks up damage limitation points. James Boomey sees his championship blow up in a 5 minutes that he wish he'd want back. But it's all about Ross McFarlane. He is still a threat for this championship overall, and he is making noise and rattling cages, and he will now take momentum heading over to Barcelona, Catalunya. We'll see you in 7 days in Montemelo, Spain.